Welcome back to the Fried Eggs podcast. If you've been here a while, you know Amy and I can't shut up about the financial side of IVF. Insurance, billing, all of it. How it's genuinely so difficult to figure out and can feel like the biggest burden, even more of a burden than the emotional or physical side of IVF. Fertility treatments, especially in the United States, are expensive. They're often not covered by insurance. Both Amy and I have paid out of pocket for multiple cycles, and they're always seems to be a mid-treatment, unforeseen cost that we have to pay on the spot, all while dealing with the hormonal fluctuations of IVF meds. And we hear this from you all as well. The experience is common. There's not a lot of transparency or support when it comes to the financial side of fertility care, even though it should be considered healthcare. So, we are so excited to bring you today's conversation with Angela Rastegar, the co-founder and CEO of Sunfish. Sunfish is a fertility fintech company focused on making family building more financially accessible and predictable, especially for self-pay patients and people often left out of the conversation, like people who need donor eggs, surrogacy, reciprocal IVF, and more. They've also recently launched an egg freezing package, which we will talk about more in the episode. Angela also brings her own lived experience to this. After going through her own fertility journey, she really became focused on the idea that everyone deserves a family planning advisor, and she's now a leading voice in how financial tools and better data can make reproductive care more transparent and accessible. One note, this episode was recorded in March, before Amy's most recent egg retrieval, so we'll share some follow-up thoughts in future episodes, especially about Sunfish and how it's something we both wish we would have had when we started our IVF journeys. Finally, make sure you check out the show notes where we link the grant database as well as Sunfish's calculator to help you better estimate what your cost will be for fertility care. All right, let's get into it.
Looking for solid ground. Not sure if I'll find it.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm so excited to meet you guys and for this conversation.
Same. We've been raving about it all week. We've been so excited.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
I had such a pleasure of getting to know Amanda, your good friend, at a girls' trip to kick the year off and put good intentions into, the future and the year ahead. And as we got to talking about, what we were hoping to put our energy into and things that we were really inspired by. And I started talking about the podcast, which is like a labor of love for Katie and myself. She mentioned you and I was like, oh my gosh, I love Sunfish. I know about Sunfish. What do you mean? I'd love to get to know Angela. And so we can thank Amanda, the fairy godmother, for connecting us.
Yes, and I'm here in the office with my team, also in Los Angeles, and I've been talking about the podcast all day. They're all so excited. We love you guys too. So I think this will be a really fun conversation. And yes, thank you to Amanda. She's been a supporter of us from early on, and it really takes a village. There's so many people in my community who've been huge fans of what Sunfish is building. So I'm very glad that she made this connection.
Yeah, me too. I'll tell you a little fun story. So when I was first, Katie and we'll get into this, but been going down our own fertility journeys for quite some time. One person that I really latched on to her story was Tara Lipinski, who then ended up being a spokesperson for y'all. So it's interesting how, it's a very small but mighty community. And it's really incredible to actually connect with you and all the amazing work you're doing.
Thank you. Well, I love what you guys are doing, and I've followed both of your stories too. And I'll talk a little bit about my own journey, but I really love what you're putting out there. I think it's so important to hear both the good stories that end in positive outcomes and the times when it's not always what you expected, because the more we can ground people in the reality of how difficult this journey is, the less alone everyone feels. So I appreciate you saying that, and it's nice to see more and more people coming out with their own stories.
Well, with that, we are super excited to welcome Angela Rastegar, CEO and founder of Sunfish, to the Fried Eggs podcast today. And I think, what we've learned over and over again is that when we go through challenging things, they often are fodder for improvements that need to be made, and we see and identify where in the industry or in the space we're missing support, we need new things. And so we'd love to start with how this came to be. What of your personal story really led you to this path, and anything that you're open to sharing on that front. I think we often find that the personal experience really drives a lot of our missions in this space.
Yeah. So my own experience and my professional work have really brought me to where I am today. So when I think a lot of people think about fertility treatments, they think you do a retrieval, you get eggs, you make embryos, transfer, have a baby. But the reality is, this process is not linear. It's a logistical nightmare. And I know this because I've been going through my own very long journey. I've gone through 4 egg retrievals myself over the last few years. And I thought, I've studied healthcare. I've now been in the fertility world professionally for quite some time. I thought I understood the process, but there's still this huge mental load and stress that takes IVF to the next level. So there's all the appointments, frantic pharmacy calls. I once had to drive across Los Angeles to go to my pharmacy to fill a prescription at a different location in the middle of the workday. And I felt like I'm not just a patient, but I'm an unpaid project manager for my own family planning. And on the professional side, I saw that tenfold. I was also working as a director at one of the largest fertility companies, helping thousands of patients around the country who were also really frustrated and stressed about the process. So I knew I wasn't alone. And I started Sunfish a few years ago to really help everyone kind of have a family planning advisor. You should not have to be an expert in medical billing or embryology or injections just to become a parent. And I really wanted to give that holistic support to people going through the process, financially, logistically, emotionally. So it's been incredible to build this based on what I'm seeing for my own patients and what I've gone through myself to help people manage all the logistics and, of course, this huge financial stress too.
Definitely. I have the same story about going across LA during traffic on a Friday, trying to get my meds in time. So we feel that deeply. Will you give us the sort of pitch of Sunfish? Like all of these things kind of come together, accumulate into the offering that is Sunfish. Could you help us understand that? And I think it'll help our listeners with the rest of the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Sunfish. We're based in Los Angeles with an office in New York too. And we help people navigate fertility journeys by providing financial, logistical, and emotional support to help every type of aspiring parent navigate this journey. So if you're paying out of pocket, if you have partial insurance, we're there to help. And we offer a few main things. The first is we offer a flat fee, personalized IVF bundle that helps eliminate the guesswork of what the cost of IVF is going to be. So, as a simple example, let's say you're trying to renovate your kitchen and they told you, "Hey, this might cost 20,000 or it might cost 60,000." We don't know. That makes it really hard to plan, and that's basically what happens in IVF. An IVF baby
Yes.
can cost anywhere from $20,000 to $200,000. So we fix the cost, and we're a financial company, so we guarantee that's going to be your cost. We include unlimited transfers, embryo transfers. There's actually a partial refund if we're wrong. And then if you need to finance that, we help you get financial support too. So we provide a lot of education for a lot of young families. This is the first big loan that you're taking out as a
Yeah.
married couple. And actually, this surprised me, but fertility treatments are now the 4th largest type of debt that Americans have
Oh, wow.
after a home, student loan, auto. It's fertility treatments are really growing. So we help people navigate that. We help them get loans. We have 0% interest options. And then on the emotional and logistical support, from the second you come to Sunfish's door, you're assigned an intake coordinator who's going to help you learn all about the process. It actually takes our team an average of 28 touch points to help someone get ready for IVF, answering a
Wow.
lot of those questions. And then we'll support you with care coordination all the way until you go home with a baby. So those logistical
Wow.
questions, making sure you get discounts, making sure you get good deals, both through the IVF procedures, but everything outside of the clinic, multivitamins, long-term storage, even mental health support and coaching. We help negotiate discounts on all of that. Our members end up saving anywhere from $9,000 to $18,000 per cycle. And obviously it could be a lot more than that, even if depending on your journey.
Yeah, the holistic approach there is so necessary and like very much what is missing from this whole journey. And I totally resonate with what you mentioned at the top of this is you have this full-time job and you're also a full-time project manager of your own care. What were some of the primary gaps that you saw in your own experience? Was it like, man, this logistical is a logistical nightmare, or like I don't know where to get care, or what were kind of those top pain points that you felt you had to go solve?
The top one and the first reason that I started Sunfish was financial. I really
Mm,
I paid for all 4 of mine out of pocket, which was incredibly expensive. I'm a founder, so I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, it was not easy for us. So that was the first thing that I started with. But as we started building the product and as I went through more of my own journey, I realized all these other pieces were needed. And that's how the company has really evolved and grown, both my experience, but also really hearing from our patients and what they need. So, a few years ago, as I was going through treatments, I was diagnosed with endometriosis, which, 1 in 10 women have that, but it's a whole nother scary, confusing thing to navigate. Then, when some of my retrievals resulted in 0 viable embryos, I was really craving more data and understanding, like, who can help coach and explain this to me. Obviously, the logistical piece was something that was at the forefront all along, but I think our team comes from very deep Silicon Valley tech roots. We're very focused on user research. And as we've talked to our patients and heard from them, these are all the things we need to add. We've really broadened our services to address financial, emotional, and logistical pieces.
I think that's amazing that you're really prioritizing user experience and that data. And I think for our listeners who might be at the beginning of their fertility journey or are kind of dipping their toes into IVF, what are some of the must financial investments with IVF? But then also, like, what are you finding some people are most caught off guard by?
Mm.
Good question.
That's a very good question. Yeah, I think when you go to a clinic and they tell you the initial cost, they usually just tell you the cost of an egg retrieval. So that's the first stage. They don't talk to you about medication, all the other testing, and then, of course, the transfers, which can really add up. It takes most people several transfers to achieve pregnancy, too. So, what we've done with our personalized all inclusive bundles is it's just one fee that up front. You're not going to get those surprise bills. And I went through it. There were some bills that got billed to me like a year later. Hey, you did this
Yeah.
little procedure. It's super frustrating. One of our patients was like, it's like going to an all-inclusive resort and being charged for water, you know?
Yeah. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
that's perfect.
That's
That's
frustrating.
absolutely it.
You're paying, $20,000, $30,000 and getting all these little bills. So this is just one and done. You know exactly what it's going to cost for the treatments, and it really eases the stress of having those bills come in or worrying like, do I need to do this? Should I add this procedure? So that's one piece. And I guess the other piece I was going to say, you mentioned kind of being data driven. That's a really big focus for us. I think fertility is moving towards more hyper personalized medicine. We're a very analytical company, so I can talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear about that. Uh, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't go ahead. Yeah, I'm
Amy
like,
is all data. She's
yeah,
you're
I
music
speaking
love
to
to
it.
my
my
She's
ears.
ears.
lighting up.
Do we
You
have
can't see her,
we
but
have
she is lighting up.
do we have evidence about anything is kind of what Katie and I ask ourselves all the time. But I maybe before we get into that, it so resonates. Katie and I have both done multiple retrievals. We've both had failed retrievals. So I'm curious about this like guaranteed approach and how you guys came to that, because I think that is something that we get caught off guard by. We think going into it, IVF will just work, right? That's like last resort. It's just gonna work. It works for everybody, right? And then you realize, oh, this is just it's a new right turn or left turn onto a brand new path with a whole bunch of other potential left and right turns like still ahead of you. And so just because you've made the decision to start IVF does not mean it's going to be a straightforward or smooth approach. So what brought you guys to that? I mean, I love the idea, a sort of a guaranteed approach. How did you get to that?
Yeah, great question. It really was frustrating for me to see a lot of my friends and my own patients going through this journey with these completely unpredictable costs. So I mentioned before starting
Yeah.
Sunfish, while I was going through my own journey, I was working in another fertility company and I had some patients that I worked with that would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. One even ended up spending over $1 million to have their baby.
Wow.
And I grew up in Silicon Valley, like, studied in the Bay Area. I worked at a VC firm. I've started other companies in the past. And I felt there was so much innovation that I was seeing happening in insurance and,
Mm.
other types of financial products, but nothing for women's health, which really frustrated me.
Yes. Us too.
So, yeah. So I started thinking and talking to some doctors and advisors like, one, it would be great to give people this peace of mind where they're not taking on that risk. Two, if you're going to need a loan or take out financing, you really need to know how much you're borrowing for. Because if you're trying to borrow 10,000, then another 10,000, then another 10,000, it ends up impacting your credit. It's harder to get approved for the full amount and to plan and stay in treatment. So those were the two things. One, I wanted people to have more information and clarity, and two, to be able to financially plan for it. So I started working with a few leading fertility doctors. My background's more in business and economics, although I did study biology in undergrad. And they helped us put together this predictive model, which will use your unique biodata from your doctor and compares it to, hundreds of thousands of historical
Yeah.
cycles. So we can actually predict and plan that specific package for you and
Wow.
guarantee your outcome. So it's a really unique approach. We started just doing that for IVF and we're now expanding, which we're going to be announcing very soon to surrogacy, egg donor, egg freezing guarantees too.
Because we're talking about hyper personalized and the future of IVF, I'm curious to hear how you see the landscape changing for IVF in general and fertility treatments in general, but also for the financial side of things.
Yeah, I feel like we're at a very exciting moment in healthcare. I've been in the healthcare world now for about 20 years in my career. I think that AI and predictive analytics is going to be core to how we are able to help people, not just giving people guidance, but really making that guidance tailored to you, to your body, to how you're responding to treatments. That's a big thing of what we're working on here, helping to guide individuals from preconception all the way until you go home with your baby to really tailor recommendations just for you and ideally to help you improve outcomes, to help you reduce the number of cycles you need for IVF. And Sunfish isn't the only one doing that. There's a lot happening behind the scenes at fertility clinics in the labs in terms of how they stimulate you, how they personalize the medicine dosages that you're taking, how they select which eggs, what happens in the
Mhm.
embryology lab. So I think that the cost of IVF is going to decrease as
Mm.
we're able to integrate a lot of this new technology, AI, and analytics to improve outcomes.
Yeah, I can't wait for that world. Maybe a little late for us,
A
Katie,
little
but
late for us, yeah.
we're sort of the guinea pigs, I guess. But
Yeah,
no,
we needed
any
that
improvement.
data from someone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we're the seeded data, right? Um,
Paying it forward.
what are you seeing in terms of you said data driven? What kind of outcomes are you seeing with folks using Sunfish to navigate their infertility road?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually are seeing early signs of improved outcomes at Sunfish already, which could not make me happier.
That's incredible.
Um, Yeah, so there's a couple things that drive that. One, we are selective about which clinics we work with. We have our own evaluation criteria, so that certainly helps. And then we're helping people reduce stress, which there's a lot of studies that show impact outcomes too. And we're helping people stay in treatment because of that financial planning, because of the unlimited transfers. So you are able to try more times a lot of the time with that
Mm.
support. So we just released some data at the end of last year. We saw that our patients, let me pull it up so I say the exact right
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely.
I have this in my talking points, but I probably should say it because it was actually published by Femtech Insider.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just released some data that showed with our patients, a little over 70% of our transfers resulted in a successful pregnancy, and the national average is 54%.
Wow.
It's
That's incredible.
early data, but yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think, you know, it those numbers behind the scenes, like what really gets our team excited is we're getting to know every single patient. They're assigned a care coordinator. They're sending us ultrasound photos and baby photos. We have a whole bulletin board with the baby photos that we've gotten. So every one of those numbers is a story where I feel like our team is really standing behind each patient and helping them and supporting them all the way until they go home with a baby.
Yeah, the added support I think is so necessary for folks going through it, especially when it's a long road. I mean, always, but even more so when it's a long road and, this it's like you're getting hit kind of at every turn and there's a lot of negativity or a lot of negative, I think, opportunity for a negative spiral there to have so that having an arm to support you is just that's such a value add.
You both have gone through long journeys. How did you navigate all of the logistics? How did you find support in going through that? Or were you just kind of on your own?
Well, we started this podcast,
Yeah.
Yeah,
We started
fair.
found
to
outlets.
funnel our energy.
One of the things that I really love that you mentioned is the stress aspect because I was also I paid for IVF out of pocket. We didn't
Mhm.
have any insurance coverage or loans or grants or anything. We just figured it out as we went along and the unforeseen costs were always yeah, like it was, it because it gets down to that moment of you're in the middle of treatment, something unexpected has happened. So in my scenario, I had a cyst that would not go away before my frozen embryo transfer. And we had paid for a package through the IVF clinic, but this fell outside of the scope of that. So we had already paid for our IVF cycle, but now there was this additional cost because of this unforeseen thing that had happened. And it was kind of like either come up with the cash or your transfer doesn't happen because we need to move forward with transfer, but you need to pay for this other treatment that you've had before that happens. And so, yeah, I mean, the stress it's very, very real. And I think I just learned to compartmentalize it and not deal with it. Like it was just too much.
Mhm.
Again, I love that you call it an unpaid project manager because that really is what you're
Mhm.
what you're doing. And it's like, and if you pause for too long to think about it, I feel like that's when it becomes overwhelming. And so I feel like I just put my head down and
Mhm.
pushed through. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you've had your own
Similarly,
experiences.
also paid for 4 I've done 4 retrievals as well out of pocket, and one of them failed. And, it's a lot of work to go through that, and then I think one thing, Katie, you noted is just sort of being you're sort of held hostage now to this bill, right? Your treatment is now being held hostage to this bill, and as we all know, infertility treatments are very time sensitive, right? Like you miss that month, you miss the whole cycle. And I don't know. I feel like on the one hand, I think it's helpful to have each other and friends and, building like a small network that kind of can understand what you've been through and can understand what you are going through. So I think, the mental health and support aspect that you're talking about with Sunfish is really valuable because I don't think that's very well understood outside of unless you've kind of been in it. The other thing I have noticed is just like either I, bury my head in the sand because you can't get bogged down by that. You have to keep moving forward. Or I'm now so distracted by this problem I do wonder how much productivity have I lost elsewhere in other things, in my job, in my other things in life, caring for family, whatever it is, because I'm funneling so much energy into following up on with, clinics or billing departments or my insurance or whatever, trying to argue for whatever the thing is or trying to advocate for myself. And that I do think that is a really hidden cost for a lot of us and to varying degrees and for varying reasons. But how much sort of productivity elsewhere are we losing because the system is so hard to work within? Um,
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys sharing that, and the fact that we all paid for out of pocket is not uncommon. That's, majority of people don't have coverage, but when you're paying out of pocket, you're actually often seeing the highest prices. The employer benefits, the insurance, they're going in and negotiating other rates. So when I
mm,
talk to clinics, I always talk about how the people in your community that most need support, like they don't have those big Google benefits, the teachers, the frontline workers, self-employed people, those are the ones that are often paying the most to go through treatment. So that's really what
mm,
we try to solve. We try to be that
wow.
advocate for people that don't have full coverage to make sure that they're being protected, they know what they're going to pay. And then I mentioned outside of the clinic too, there's all these other costs, medications. We have the a lowest price guarantee on meds, multivitamins, like mental health, long-term storage. Amy, you were mentioning how a lot of people don't realize that it's not going to work on your first cycle. And you guys were lucky that you were able to start this podcast as a way to cope with that. But I think what you're doing is really important because over the last 5 years, I've seen a lot more openness about how it doesn't work the first time and how long this journey is on social media with celebrities, people sharing their journeys, which I think is so important and has actually been a big driver for us where we're telling people like you should have data, you should go in with open eyes about what this is really going to take for you and how many cycles we think you are going to need so you can plan. It shouldn't be a surprise that the first one didn't work. You should know your odds and you should kind of know on average it takes people with these demographics, this age, this number of follicles, this many cycles because we're going to, be committed to this journey and it's better for us to have that information and to really know what we're getting into.
Yeah. I mean, a full picture, you can then make some more empowered decisions, right? Like,
Exactly.
even thinking about how to pay for it, you may make different decisions knowing that this is going to be a long-term effort, or you may decide that's not the route for you and maybe you want to try a different path. And we're all about empowering each other to be able to make better decisions about our own health and family planning.
Yeah, and financially, you can really make much better decisions if you have that information. So, for example,
Mm,
if you know you're only going to most likely need one cycle, maybe you just put it on a credit card and pay that off. But if you know you're going to need a lot of steps or maybe an egg donor, we offer the option to finance through a HELOC, like a home equity line of credit, where you can take out a much bigger amount. So,
mm.
we really want people to have that education because it's so tied to this huge financial purchase where you can make much better decisions for yourself.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be one of our questions for you too is how to think about or what advice would you have when you're looking at these different options? And I think that you hit on one really good one is it's hard to make that good decision if you don't really know what you're expecting.
Mm.
Um I guess what other questions should somebody be sort of asking themselves when they're thinking about how to plan for this big financial, burden or investment?
Mm. Yeah. If you're just starting IVF, how do you develop a financial plan?
Oh, man. I wish someone asked me that question.
Yeah. Well, the first step would be to come talk to our team. We can help you out.
There
We
you go.
actually developed an online quiz called our Financial Hub, where you can kind of go through, enter information about yourself, and it gives you a lot of resources. So, some of the tips that we share with our aspiring parents, one would be ask for help. A lot of times, future grandma and grandpa are willing to help out. Two will kind of help you go through your credit history in case you do need to take out a loan. Make sure if you have too many cards, for example, you can consolidate. There's a lot of things you can do to help improve your credit if that's a direction you need to go. 3, there's actually a lot of grants and discounts available that people aren't aware of for a lot of special communities. So, cancer survivors, frontline workers, people of Jewish origin, and we've built out the largest searchable grant and discount database on our site. As far as I know, it's free
Amazing.
to use. So, you can see if you qualify for any of those.
Katie,
Um,
you should see if you qualify with
yeah.
Anthony. Who's a
I
firefighter.
know. Yeah, my husband's a
Yeah.
firefighter,
Yeah.
so
Check it
Yeah.
out.
possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I always just say make sure that you are kind of breaking the journey into stages if necessary. So it doesn't have to all be done, in the same few months. You can spread it out if it helps financially.
One of the things that Amy and I have been talking a lot about more recently on the podcast we had, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dr. Sarah Orrick from Mavita Health. She was on the podcast earlier this year, and we've been talking a lot about creating this team, right? So when you are going into your fertility journey, it's not just your fertility doctor, it's not just your IVF clinic, but it's the mental health resources that you're relying upon. It's you all. It's Sunfish. It's having people to help you
Hmm.
navigate the financial side of things. I mean, I think for both for Amy and I, we were doing it all on our own. It was just like we were the ones kind of talking to our IVF clinic, talking to the billing department, figuring out everything, and talking to each other for mental health support. But it really is something that I hope is kind of the future of fertility care, is that you are building out this team to support you in your journey. And so I really appreciate what you all are doing and offering that service.
Yeah, you really need that family planning advisor. And it's a long journey. I'm now, I've created some embryos. I'm now starting to think about transfers. We're still building our family. We don't have any kids yet. And it feels scary in a different way. Like the retrievals are hard, but the transfers are this huge emotional weight where you're actually trying to get to this outcome that we've been hoping for so long. So I know it's
Yeah.
really tough, and I think my role being the CEO of a company that helps people and supports people every day going through this journey is that my mind never turns off from this, which I think can be really taxing at times, but I also think it's really beautiful to be um, going through this and seeing what our customers, our patients are going through while I'm going through it too. It's given me a whole another degree of empathy. And I think I'm constantly thinking of ideas like, we should add this, we should do this. So it's really helped drive
Yeah.
the product. Obviously, our customers give us the best feedback, but I'm in it all day, all night. And I'm constantly thinking of ways where I think it can be improved.
It's amazing. Yeah. That personal experience, there's nothing like it to develop that empathy for what people are going through. Um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
certainly don't have to answer this, but if you are open to sharing, I'm curious how you made a decision to keep going down the retrieval route prior to moving to transfer. It's also a topic Katie and I talk a lot about, 'cause I have not gotten to transfer at this point. We're trying to find a gestational carrier and move that process along. Um, but that was a long term or a long time debate point of like, all right, you have one or two embryos. Why don't you just try transferring with those before, doing more retrievals? And for me, it was always that I'm getting older. I want more than one kid. This is not guaranteed to work. Certainly, we've learned nothing in fertility treatments is guaranteed. So it's been an order of operations, sort of a prioritization exercise. And certainly, I would have loved to try to have done this 3 years ago, but that just wasn't where we were at the time. So I'm curious how you thought about it, because I think it would very much resonate with
I
listeners.
mean, I see the data every day, so more is always better. Especially, we would love to have 2 kids as well, and so I really wanted to try to bank as many embryos as we could before we started transfers. So I actually did 2 rounds of egg freezing a long time ago before I met my partner. I had a lot of successful frozen eggs from that. after I met my husband, we both really want kids. It's something we talked about very early on when we started dating. I was like, listen, I work in fertility. I know the numbers. Why don't we try to bank some embryos before we thaw and fertilize the frozen eggs? So he was super on board. He's fantastic. We went in for a retrieval. That's when I got diagnosed with endometriosis. So I had to
Hmm.
treat that. That was, many months, big surgery. Then finally went back to do the retrieval, got a bunch of eggs, turned them into a good number of embryos, but none of them were normal. So that was a really disappointing process to go through. Like you see those numbers every day kind of dwindling, send them out for testing. You have to wait a couple weeks to get the results. None of them were normal, which just happens as you age. And my doctor was like, listen, Angela, I figured it out. We're going to try again. This time's going to be better. Went through the whole thing again. Same process, also 0 embryos. So at
Yeah.
that point, we went back to fertilize my frozen eggs, which thank goodness resulted in a bunch of healthy embryos from a long time ago.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel very, very lucky that I did that. That was actually when I was starting my first company in San Francisco. It made me really appreciate how important and how lucky we are to be able to have the option for egg freezing. Because if I hadn't done that, I don't think we would have created any embryos. Not that you need a biological relation to your embryos to be a parent, but it was something that I was excited we were able to do. And now I'm actually really excited after that whole journey. We've been working for about a year on creating an egg freezing guarantee product, which we're launching
Amazing.
in April. I'm really, really excited about it, which will allow people full support as they go through egg freezing. It's obviously a scary process to go through. And for our gold membership, we will predict the number of eggs that you need. And if you don't get that number of eggs, you actually get a second cycle for free. So it's a 2-cycle package where the second cycle is included if you don't get
Wow.
the target number of eggs. So
Yeah. Wow.
awesome. I think it will
I
be a lot.
I don't know if you can opine on this, but it feels like that it's very advantageous for us to intercept people who want families earlier and younger, right? Healthier eggs, our eggs as we get older, the success rate of a genetically normal embryo goes down and down and down, right? Which means more and more cycles, more and more out of pocket, right? More and more time spent. It's like on the economic scale, it seems like we should be incentivized to start thinking about fertility planning much earlier than any of us are sort of than most. I think, at least I'll speak for myself. I didn't think about this until my husband and I were ready to have kids. We like it's curious to me how we as a society just don't really help people plan for their fertility, but it seems like it would be advantageous to do that from a financial perspective. Like insurance
Yeah,
companies would want you to do that.
yeah. I think we'll see a lot of changes. Did you see what's happening in France?
I
No.
was just gonna say you haven't seen this?
I haven't
Baby,
no, I'm
sorry.
under a
I'm
rock.
sorry. I should have.
Tell me.
I know. I should have sent it to you.
No, tell me. Say
You
it.
can say it, Katie.
Well, they're incentivizing. I don't remember what the
Hmm.
age bracket is.
29,
Okay, yes.
29-year-olds. Yeah.
Yes,
29
okay.
year olds. Yeah.
I did see that, you're right. Yeah, that's interesting. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
So, but no, you're right. I mean, I think that e- egg freezing was deemed an experimental procedure until pretty recently. So I think that public sentiment's really changing, and both women and men are becoming a lot more informed that these technologies exist. And it's just a nice option to have. It's obviously not a guarantee. And maybe you don't even end up using it, but it's just a nice option to have. And now I've actually spoken to a lot of not a lot, but a number of parents here in California who've had their own struggles, and they're like, as soon as my daughter turns 21, I want to pay for her to freeze her eggs. Like, it's just becoming something that people think about. Whereas for people in their late 30s, 40s, it really wasn't an option when we were in our 20s. It wasn't talked about. So I'm seeing a big shift, which I'm really excited about. Definitely the sooner the better. But I think there's broader problems at large with how expensive it is to have a family in general, how
Mhm.
expensive living expenses are that make this whole process challenging in a much broader societal context. Yeah, we're going to really try to get out there with the egg freezing product and try to make it a little bit easier for people. Also have 0% interest financing options. So
Amazing.
I would love
Yeah.
for more people to take advantage of that, because if I hadn't done it, I know for sure we wouldn't have been able to create our own embryos.
Yeah. Yeah, and suffering through retrieval after retrieval and failure after failure really takes a toll, I think, across the board.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure we all remember, like, you're checking your portal every hour trying to see if there's results.
Yeah, and then
I've blocked it all out.
That's good, Katie.
yeah, yeah, that's good. You might be back in it.
I know.
Don't
Yeah,
speak too soon.
I'm probably going to be doing another retrieval here in the coming months. And I was just texting Amy this morning that I am starting to realize, oh, I need to get back on my supplements. Like I need to start
Mhm.
thinking and trauma brain. So
Yeah.
it's like don't want to
Yeah.
go there yet, but yeah, it's very very likely.
And I am getting back into that as well myself. So I'm already texting Katie like, "Oh my god, the
Oh,
number,"
well, if Sunfish can
it's
support you,
tough.
let me know. We'd be happy to help you guys. Good luck.
So if someone wants to get started with Sunfish or they're starting to think about IVF or they're starting to think about that they need more fertility treatments, how do they navigate this? How do they go about finding you guys, finding a doctor? Like, what's the sort of order of operations people should go through?
Oh, yeah. Great question. Well, they can find us on a bunch of places online. We're at Join Sunfish on social media, TikTok, Instagram, etc. Or our website is joinsunfish.com. We're a great place to start. If you want to come here first, our team has a lot of information about the IVF process. When should you try IVF? Should you consider switching from IUI to IVF, etc.? And we also have a great network of providers that we work with throughout the country. So we can help you connect with a physician if you don't already have one. We only work with certain clinics. So if you wanted to get Sunfish's support, it would need to be at one of our partner clinics. And we try to be very selective about which clinics we work with. But yeah, anyone who's looking for resources, we do have a lot of free information like the free grant and discount database, the financial hub that can help you prepare. And then obviously, if you'd like to move forward with one of our personalized bundles, you would get all the support we talked about with the family kind of financial planning, the family planning advisor that would be with you from preconception all the way until you go home with a baby.
If someone finds a provider and then thinks, "Oh, do they have Sunfish?" How do they go about trying to figure that out? Just
Yeah, you can ask. A lot of providers have that information in their offices, so that you know that they work with Sunfish, but you can always ask. And if they don't work with Sunfish and you've heard about us, then you can ask your doctor about Sunfish as well. We're often adding new clinics when patients are requesting that they be added to our network.
Final question for you, Angela, for our listeners. Can you tell us about the name?
ooh, good
Yes.
question.
I mean, I love it. I think it's
Is
so fun, and I would love to hear how you came up with it.
Yeah. It is. It's a fun word to say, and it sounds positive, but the ocean sunfish are one of the most fertile animals. The females have over 200 million eggs, and they're very peaceful. I grew up in Hawaii, and they're very special there. They kind of float peacefully along. So I thought they had this very positive vibe, very fertile, exactly what I would want from my patients.
I love
Beautiful.
it. It is beautiful, and it's so much more it is beautiful, and it's so much more
Beautiful.
approachable than,
Yeah.
like, IVF financing
Full
company. Yeah.
support with our happy sunfish.
Right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Well, this was so incredible, Angela. Thank you for spending the time with us and digging into the great work Sunfish is doing and also the lessons learned that you've experienced as you've gone through your own journey. And we'll be keeping an eye out and also just wishing you so much luck and, positivity in your next steps of your own journey.
Thanks, Amy and Katie, and have a lovely
You
weekend.
too. Thank you.